All right, we are live. Perfect.
How about that Zcash, bro?
Yeah, that was actually insane to see that up like 4% this morning.
It's up 8% today. Telling you. I don't know what I'm telling you, but I'm telling you. Oof. Yeesh. Yeah. Morning, everybody. Welcome in. Come on. Come on down. You're the next contestant on the Price is Right. Wow, INOD full round, almost a full round trip. Holy Toledo. All right, hey, let's get to work. Let's let some people get in and we'll get to work. Happy good morning, happy morning. It is Friday, November 14th. The QQQ is gapping down 1.4%, tiny bit off the lows here. I think we're down 1.6% off the lows. Bitcoin down 2% again, tiny bit off the lows right now. IWM down 1.2%. I think that's the lowest of the indexes, or Dow Jones down the lowest. ARC, Kathy Jones ETF down 3%. So pretty nasty gap down following yesterday's weakness. Interesting. ARC is this candle is going to be completely outside the lower Bollinger Band. Bollinger Bands are just standard deviation moves away from the 20 period moving average. We're also nearing into kind of this first area of support. If you pull up this chart here, I've kind of got it between the 75 and 72-ish zone, right there where we kind of based for July to September. Interesting in terms of the moving averages, kind of in, actually not kind of, we are in no man's land. That's a pretty significant move down. I mean, ARC is down just under 20% off the highs. We're at about 19.9% off of highs from early October at $92. Um, that's a lot, right? That's a lot. And in terms of moving averages, we're well below the 50-day moving average, and we're still about, what, gosh, 10% above the 200-day, 9% above the 200-day moving average. Makes it very interesting. In terms of individual names, we got almost everything gapping down 3% or more for the most part. Again, you know, kind of in no man's land. I sent out some notes this morning and a bit yesterday, to where we can start tracking relative strength. And I don't necessarily, again, I don't mean necessarily green when the index is red, right? That obviously that is one aspect of relative strength, right? But when you look at one of the most obvious examples of relative strength back in March and April was kind of the location at which some of these stocks were pulling back at, and these turned out to be the strongest stocks since the April lows, right? So the relation to the March low as well as the 200-day moving average, while the QQQ was well below that March low and well below that 200-day moving average up here. Okay, so there's starting to be an aspect of that in the market. I don't find any of that information yet to be something that I am interested in taking action on. For example, I've got Snowflake on my chart, right? Pulling into the 50-day moving average. Well, this is now pulling into the 50-day with the Qs, again, slightly below the 50-day moving average. Not necessarily, something I'm super interested in yet, but, some of those earnings, stocks that are, setting up or looked like they were setting up, and they very well might too, right? Once the market find its footing a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, however, some of those subtle signs are going to mean a bit more, going to be mean a bit more. But as of right now, I think they're most likely masks and, um, you know, not fakeness, but not something to take action on yet. Um, this is I do want to briefly read part of the message I sent out this morning. I think we've done a good job of expressing the fact that it's hard to find opportunities. Watch list is narrow, and there's very minimal standout names this week and lately. This has made it, fairly easy to sit out or be extremely small size in any attempted ideas. And I spent the past 2 weeks talking about the small size of my any trading activity to expect. I'm not trying to be the first one back into the market when this period ends. Looking for that special first 1/8 is often costly in money and costly in mental capital. For the traders that are new, it might seem important to look to take action every day and to predict what's going to happen next, what where is this going to settle, what's going to come out. And for those that are more experienced, know that it's best to let the first few ideas pass and let the market stand out like a sore thumb of what is important and actionable. And then lastly, fear not, my friends. Markets pull back, right? These things happen frequently, right? Multiple times a year. So the best time to dedicate yourself to an approach during periods like this is now. And for how you want to approach and start thinking about how you want to approach the other side of the market, what your criteria might look like in order to ramp up some of that participation again. Yeah, Rocco, how you doing?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
All right. Yeah. Good morning, guys. So,
No, I cannot hear you. Everybody pour one out for Rocco. R.I.P. homie. And he's gone.
yo, am I good?
What?
Am I good?
You are good. You're great.
Okay. I think I'm okay. I don't know what happened there. The thing just froze. Okay. Should be good now. But okay, back to what I was saying. Let's just pretend that never happened. Okay. Just go back like 30 seconds. Um, well, I was saying really, really interesting setup today. So, Qs are back into this big 600 level that we bottomed at last Friday. Um, what's interesting is that first of all, vol has been pretty muted, right? You don't really see any panic or fear yet, and it's interesting because if you really do like a deep scan of breadth indicators, indexes, all like the sector ETFs, it really isn't that bad under the hood. It's really a lot of like the retail heavy kind of speculative high beta names that are getting killed as far as the market goes. And if you watch that classic Peter Lynch video or just study any previous cycles, this is like a very, very normal correction. And that's, that leads me to believe that I do think the Qs are going to bounce, whether it be today or tomorrow. I'm not sure it's going to be the easiest kind of like there is a rubber band long setting up on a lot of those, high beta names. Today or tomorrow is my guess. for me to get really aggressive today, we would have to definitely see some sort of really intraday, panic type slippery price action and some things, especially the indexes would help and a big VIX spike. Monday, sorry, I know tomorrow's Saturday, obviously. But typically when you get a rubber band long scenario, that's like kind of my bread and butter. And the best way that I like to, or I guess my best indicator for when those are ready is kind of my gut, to be honest. Like I know if I wake up and I scan through charts and I get like stupid excited, I know that like that's usually the day. Not feeling it completely today. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the fact that it's a Friday. It's only day two of the move down on the Qs. Given it is a pretty big 2 day move. You can never go wrong if, you want to play it a little safer and just go with like a Soxel if we start to get, some signs that, we want to reverse and turn today. What I'd really like to see if that's going to happen is some sort of sell off in the morning that starts to turn off the lows and reclaim the VWAP. And that's like the easiest setup to try to get involved if you want to try that. Um, but the T2108 still, I mean, I'm guessing it's going to open probably somewhere around 32% today. It's still above 30%, which is like not super oversold territory. And this represents all the stocks in the market, right? Not just like the high beta names. So overall, the market is like not super oversold in terms of breadth, which like makes it a lot trickier than like, like an April 7th kind of like rubber band long in the market, right? And, we haven't really, this sell off hasn't really been driven by any like big headlines. Um, an increase in negative headlines today or tomorrow would be like a really good signal to try to get involved. So that's another like kind of tricky scenario. Some names I am keeping an eye on. I do think this Ethereum relative strength versus Bitcoin is like super super interesting. It's only down 19 cents in the pre-market. And IBIT's down 2.5%. I think that's pretty notable. I mean, typically in the past, you've seen, Bitcoin down 2.5% and Ethereum down like 4%, and that's just not the case. And we saw the same thing back last Friday when IBIT was clearly below the 200 day and Ethereum was showing relative strength. And it actually bounced harder. And, it might be something I'm going to watch today. It's undercutting these 11.4 lows. My screen's not up, but I'm going to pull it up right now.
All
It's
right.
undercutting last Friday's lows in the pre-market and held the 200 day pretty much at the pre-market low. So this could be something in play today. Versus IBIT, which is well below that 11.7 low. There was some rumors going around and some fear being spread around. Michael Saylor selling Bitcoin this morning. He came on CNBC and said those are false rumors, and that they're actually accelerating their Bitcoin purchases. MSTR has been bouncing pretty hard off the lows since he kind of mentioned that on CNBC this morning. Um, Another name I'm watching, Oracle, I actually find very interesting, especially if it like really pukes intraday today and capitulates below the 200-day moving average. Saw tons of tweets about the credit default swaps this morning and whatever. Anytime you get that kind of commentary around a name that's really oversold into a big support, um, you know, yeah, So I'm keeping an eye on this one. IO and Q is one I'm interested in if we end up seeing the quantum bounce. I mean, QUBT is getting crushed. It's down a little bit on earnings this morning, but it's reversing a little bit off the lows. RGTI down in the low 20s. If these are going to bounce, IO and Q up to 200 days, one I'm watching. I would love like an undercut of the 200 day on like Friday. Obviously the further it stretches, the better the trade becomes from like a risk reward perspective. But these are just a couple names I'm keeping an eye on today. BE as well had a huge down day yesterday, but sitting right around the 50-day moving average this morning. I could see this undercutting the 50-day and reclaiming like $100. Trade a lot of volume yesterday, which is really what you like to see before like a capitulation, kind of even if it's just short term. So this is a big spot I'm watching. Irene and CIFR, both have gotten crushed the last 4 or 5 days. These are both at the 20-week moving averages in pre-market. So that's a pretty big spot on some, one of the strongest groups of this rally. So those are two to pay attention to. And then Soxel, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, is the other one on my list. So this is into a pretty big spot. But yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm feel like I want to get really aggressive today. Obviously, that can change. Price is going to dictate that today. But you know, I'll tell you what, it's been nice being cash most of the week. I mean, usually when a market corrects like this, especially last year, like I would have been pretty short right now. And while it was nice to make money on those shorts, I've never been able to handle myself correctly or just, uh, flip my mindset quickly to get back into that bullish bias. And, I mean, even the times that I did end up shorting last year when we did pull back, we ended up ripping off the lows every time. And I was never ready to flip to the long side. I was caught in that bearish mindset because God, does it feel good to really crush the market when it's selling off. So that's, one of the big reasons why I didn't want to get too aggressive on the short side, this time around, until we really saw a big like distribution top on the indexes, like we saw into, February and March of this year. And I'll also say it's really nice being cash because it really allows you to view the market like objectively, right? You become like much less influenced by any sort of price swings, any news narratives, social media chatter. Like I felt no emotions yesterday and today. I'm just excited for the opportunities, and just kind of focus on getting the timing right, not chopping myself up too early. So that's been the reason for kind of my patience this week, and hopefully it's time. We'll see. We definitely saw our first sign of like some capitulatory price action. Not necessarily um, like ready to bottom, but like, as far as like you could definitely feel people puking out of positions, whether it's like long-term positions or short-term, whatever it is. And this morning, you're kind of seeing the second kind of leg of that. So if we do end up closing near the lows today, or if it continues to get pretty ugly today, which is always a possibility, that's going to make Monday's potential very, very exciting, because we've seen just that pattern of really nasty Friday closes into Mondays. Usually leads into a pretty big like volatility spike and some Monday capitulation. And, you could trade the market back up into the gap, and it's just a really nice like classic playbook setup. So I hope that's the case. Probably asking for a lot, considering how stretched some of these are getting, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. So that would be the best case scenario. I'm gonna go get some water. I'll be right back.
You quench your thirst, Mr. Bracco. Um, I'm gonna be brutally honest, is obviously I can see some things that would stand out. Like yeah, man, have you just said probably three of the ones that I'm interested of those five ones as they kind of build out, right? The stocks that have, again, that are oops, let me pull my screen back up, that are above some key moving averages and that have made reasonable moves, like an XPEV right here, even like a Rivian. But if I'm in a optimistic mindset, I'm looking for these to tighten up, right? I'm looking for these to build out. I'm looking over here on the right side of my screen at the hourly moving averages, the 9 and the 20, and I'm looking for a little mini reversal extension, a pop, and higher low volatility contraction, and a wedge pop on the hourly to get involved over here, which is possible. Like a Rivian, an XPEV, D-Dog, MDB, maybe a Snowflake, kind of those same, Twilio, kind of those same areas of the market that we've been looking at. In fact, if we do get oops reversal, this Twilio, I probably would be interested in something like Twilio, just again like an oops reversal after an earnings gap up at the 20 MA. That's kind of like my my jam, right? That's essentially the setup that I like to look for: a big move and then a pullback to 20 MA, and you get a gap down in red to green. That's my favorite. I'm Bracco's really good at something like an Oracle, right? Where it's you know nasty, fearful into some really big spots, and capturing that snapback move at some of these times, to where I personally look at this and I'm like, man, I'm just not interested in this. This is likely going to take, months of, building out. Is this one of the something that is, actionable and, likely a go-to, if we do get, some upside volatility throughout the day, yeah, these are going to bounce, possibly really hard, right? But or even like an IBIT or an ETHA, something like that. But
Yo, I forgot to mention CRCL too. This is like just we talked about how something might have been going on with this. I don't know. The last couple days with the amount of volume it's been seen, but I scanned like 100 stocks this morning and this was the only one green. So I don't know what's going on or if this could be in play today, but it's maybe something to just keep an eye on.
we're right at that IPO day close, I believe, aren't we? Another thing that I like to see, towards the end of waves of selling, if you will. Talked about this in the videos a little bit last night, which is some of that correlation, right? So we've seen XLV, right, XLE, some of the financials stand out. Most notably, I think XLV, right, the healthcare ETF. And once that relative strength subsides and the correlation in the market is essentially 1 to 1, where it doesn't matter if it's Amgen or if it's Apple, right? That they're kind of pulling back in unison. Um, I do like to see that. Usually indicates more ending of periods. So yeah, Amazon ManRev is there's a potential another one right at the 20 May. So if there is anything that I take action on, it will be things that are at or near the 20 EMA and are putting in a notable oops reversal candle where I have a clear presence of buyers and I have an area to risk off of. If it's in your playbook and you have experience buying something that looks like something like Meta, then go for it. But for me, that's not in really in my playbook for the most part. So yeah.
Tesla's right at the 20-week as well.
Oh, so yeah, Bracket market opens in 2 minutes.
No, UPST just went green. I don't know. I think there's going to be some opportunities next week, and I think uh, ruining your week on a Friday is a bad way to start that preparation. So never fun.
Never a good idea to blow your load on a Friday.
No.
Well, depending on the context, of course. Market opens in 20 seconds. Get your stock boxes filled out. Let's go do we do people.
Advanced client prediction.
Negative 722.
Say negative 1110.